welcome to the latest webinar in our Engineerica Education Keynote series. We're very pleased to be bringing you this complimentary presentation. For those of you who are new to us, Engineerica specializes in academic center management solutions for higher education. You might be familiar with our software applications, which include AccuTrack, Accudemia, and AccuCanvas, and I want to give a special welcome to any Engineerica clients joining us today. And for those of you who are not yet clients, I do want to let you know we are offering a complimentary trial of our most popular center management system, which is Accudemia. This gives you the opportunity to use Accudemia for an entire semester risk-free to see if it makes management of your center and data collections easier. If you're interested, you can send me an email at rachelc@engineerica.com, and I'm just going to quickly paste that into the chat here. Oops, it didn't copy over right. Oh, there we go. Rachel, sorry. rachelc@engineerica.com if you want to contact me about that trial. And we are also delighted to announce that we are going to host a conference on student success on October 14th and 15th. During this conference, we are going to offer more of these types of sessions live and in person. We will also be offering training sessions on our academic products, and we are going to be accepting proposals for breakout sessions. So mark your calendars. Join us in beautiful Orlando, Florida, right near our company's headquarters on October 14th and 15th. The weather is usually really gorgeous in October. Conference Hotel is within a 10-minute walk from Universal Studios, so you can come in on the weekend or stay a couple days after and visit the theme parks. There's also some great shopping close by, lots of activities. Right now, we are offering $200 off of the normal conference rate. So trying to copy that, of course. Right now, we're offering $200 off the normal conference rate. Let me go ahead and paste that link in the chat where you can learn more about this and register. So next slide, please, Nick. Thank you so much. We started this keynote series for our clients and contacts who want to learn more about best practices and trends in higher education. Each month, we feature a distinguished speaker to talk about hot topics in the academic support field. We are finalizing details for our next webinar, so keep an eye on your emails and our social media accounts for an announcement for when we open up that registration. And a quick introduction to myself, your MC for today. I'm Rachel Cook. I am a client success manager with Engineerica. I was previously a learning center manager for 6 years, so I'm like you all, I'm very passionate about higher education and student success. I also have with me Nick Armstrong, our senior technical support specialist. He's here as my backup and also to help with any technical issues that might come up. And with hi, Nick. With that said, I am pleased to introduce you to this month's speaker. Janine Rudnick is a graduate of South Dakota State University, but has been a Texan for over 30 years. She is a professor at El Paso Community College and is the lead trainer for the college's Technology Resource Center, which provides online training for students, faculty, and staff. In addition, she is a faculty development coordinator focusing on active learning. Student engagement is very important to her, and she knows that being involved in learning is an integral part of student success. So with all that said, I am going to go ahead and hand things over to Janine.
All right.
Take it away.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So when I think back at my college education, we had a professor who was fantastic. But as I get older and I am involved in the classroom, I realize that he could have done a lot better, because he was a man who knew his content. He knew it well, but he talked for an hour and a half. There was no interaction. There was nothing to say, let's get in groups and talk about what he just talked about, or it was a court case class. And oh my goodness, it would have been so much different had he used engaging techniques. So what we're going to do today is bridge that gap from my old school and maybe yours too, education, to what we want to do in the classroom now. We know that engagement is important. So let's take a look at some things that we can do to engage our students. You're going to be actively involved in this. You're going to try out some of these different things so you can see firsthand what it's like. Let's take a look at some of those. All right, so we want to go ahead and show information about engagement. Okay, and that slide's visible, yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So when we engage our students, we of course want to do as much as we can to help them learn in different ways. And what I have found is if you combine the content, and the content is always what decides what you're going to do. Content is the most important thing. And then secondarily, you want to take a look at how can I present this in a way that's going to be maybe entertaining or learning in a different way. It doesn't have to be fun all the time, but you want to engage people a little bit differently. We know there are online strategies you can use in terms of gamifying something. And we're going to take a look at a couple of things that you can create yourself. So the first thing we want to talk about is shared documents. I am a Microsoft user. That's what our college has purchased. And I use shared documents quite a bit. And we know that when you share a document, for example, in an email, if you share the link, it's a live document and you can go back and change things if you want to before they click on it, rather than sending a static document. But let's take a look at how we can do this in class. One of the things that I like to do at the beginning of class, the beginning of the semester, is have an introduction. And online especially, students do not get to know each other at all. And I want to find a way that they can maybe find a common interest or find something, maybe somebody has the same hobby that they do. But it also helps in a class where you see the students. Because now, if your situation is like at my college, those students are working and they don't get to meet each other. They don't hang out with each other because they're going from work to school and then back to work, and it's really tough. So let's take a look at what you could do. So you would just have basically, I'm not going to read you the slide, but what you're doing is creating a shared PowerPoint, and you share it with the students so they can edit it. And what I usually do is have the names of the students written on the slides so they can find their slide. You don't have to do it that way. It does take a little bit of time to add each student's name, but that way they're not trying to change somebody else's slide. There's not kind of a scramble to find a slide that nobody's at, and it works pretty well. So I have them create a slide about themselves. I ask for pictures, and I find that the students who are a little bit older do not like to have their pictures on, but the younger students have their poses ready to go because they take a lot of selfies. I don't know, you may not see the case, but that's usually what I see with my students. I also ask them about their pets, their hobbies. In my case, I want the pronunciation. My name is a difficult one for people to pronounce if they haven't heard it before. Maybe a nickname. And I want to know those things so that the rest of us can feel comfortable around that person. And so really I'm calling them by the name they want to be called by. Sometimes they have a different first name than what they want to be called. I also warn them, don't change anything on anyone else's slide. So you would create an example for them. And this is my example. So here are the things that I'm interested in. There's a picture of me on a safari. It's not, it's Google culture, which is, look into it, it's very cool. So there's a picture of me, there's a picture of my cat. Here's a little bit of what I like to do, and then the pronunciation of my last name. Now, what you can do is do this during class or do this as an assignment. And again, you've created a shared document. And if you don't know how to do that, just let me know in the chat and I can show you how to create a shared document in Microsoft. And you let them do this as an assignment or do it in class right there so we can take a look at it. Then everybody has a link to this document and they can see everybody in class. And so there's that initial engagement of let's not just get to the topic at hand right away, but let's take a look and get to know each other. Okay, does everybody, if anybody doesn't know how to do a shared document in Microsoft, just again, put it in the chat and I'll show you that a little bit later. So this is one way you can do a shared document. Let's take a look at a couple others. You don't necessarily just have to do a PowerPoint, but you can do this for different activities. So I'm going to open up an Excel document. And what I've done here is I've got my student's name to one side. And one of the classes I teach is English as a second language. This would be for maybe an English class or an ESL class. And what you want to do is have each student listed here and then give them a question word. And then they have to write their question. And then what I do, I have them do it during class. Now, if you're doing face-to-face, most of them have phones, and you can put up a QR code, have them go to this page and create the information. So just create the QR code and they can go to it. And then they're typing out their question. And then what you can do is erase or hide this column with the names on it. And then you're going through the questions. Students aren't going to usually go down and look at everybody's questions and say, oh, Julian doesn't know anything about when. And in fact, if people make mistakes, that's just all part of learning. So I never ridicule or anything. Well, none of us do ridicule students, but you might want to hide the names if you want to do it that way. And then we might go through and say, okay, this is Jared's question. Margaret, can you tell me if that question is stated accurately? Now, this is pretty simplistic. Again, it's ESL, but you could also use this for things like a detailed question. And you might, instead of the what, you might have a detailed question that you might look into for a test question. And then once people fill these out and you've got a question for each student, then by the time this is finished and you've gone over it in class, that's a pretty good study guide for the test, right? But it's not like you created it. You did create some of the questions to guide them, but instead they have created the answers, and if they don't know the answers, other students in the class can help correct. So it's kind of a double thing there. You're asking students to write the questions, and then you're asking somebody else to correct. And again, you do this right all at the same time. Every student can write at the same time. It's kind of like old school everybody goes up to the chalkboard, right? But here, you're doing it in an Excel spreadsheet. I use Excel because I like the lines of it, and it seems more organized than just using a whiteboard, which you could put a table in anyway. Okay, so that's one way to do it. And that is, again, it's a shared document, and everybody will have access to that. Now, let's take a look at that. We can go back and go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we had a couple of people in the comments saying they don't know how to create a shared document. If you're able to show that really quickly before we move on.
Yeah, I will do that. Okay, so here is my slide. And what I want to do is go up to share. And you can still see no, you can't see my slide anymore, can you?
We see the PowerPoint, but not.
The PowerPoint, okay.
Yeah.
Can you see up at the top where it says share? The red share. Mm-hmm. All right, so that's what we're going to use. So in any Microsoft product, you're going to go up to the area that says share, and you're going to click on that. I'm having a hard time on my mouse here. You're going to click on this button that says share, and there are a few things that you want to take a look at. So I'm just going to click on share. The first thing you have to do is save the document, whatever it is, PowerPoint, Excel, Word. You want to have to save it somewhere. And I use OneDrive. It's just Microsoft's cloud, and I put it into my OneDrive. So you have to do that first. And here I'm going to share, and it's going to ask me a few questions. So I have to do a couple of things in order to share. So I can email it or add a name or add a certain group if I want to. And I can also add a message if I'm emailing it. Now, I wouldn't email this to my students probably. That would be a lot more work than I really want to do. But what I can do is go to link settings. And now I'm deciding who I want to share this with. Now, anyone means anyone inside of your organization or outside of the organization. I always choose this one because if I choose people in my organization, they have to know their email, and some of the students aren't as familiar with their college email as I wish they were. And then you can do this with people with existing access. So first of all, you decide which one of these links you want to use. I recommend anyone. If it's something that is more, if you're sharing a document with maybe people in your department, maybe you want to use your organization, or you put their names down. Then you want to go down, let's say anyone, and then you want to go down here and you're saying can edit, can view, or cannot download. So I want to make them, anytime I have a shared document with my students, now shared document, your syllabus, some of the things that you are working on are not going to be editable, right? You don't want them to get to it. You can share it, but you're not going to let them edit those things. So you would just let them view. But you can edit and have them edit. So that's probably a good tool to use. Now remember that even if you say somebody can view something, if you send the link, you on your end can still change the content, and they won't even know that you've changed the content, which is kind of a nice thing, because if you, for example, you send something out and it's kind of like a hard copy, everybody gets a personal copy of it, you can't go back and change something. What if you see that there's a mistake? Yeah, then you're in trouble, because you have to resend it. And if you make it into a link first and send it as a link, you can go in and edit that. All right, so we're saying edit and then apply. You can do the date, you can set a password. Those are more detailed things that we probably don't need to do. And then I'm just copying the link. And once I have this link, I can send it anywhere. So I can put it in their LMS. I can put it into an email. I can I can create a QR code with it, and it's just an easy way to do it. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes. We had another quick question. I think so somebody is asking, can you make it so that the student can type but not edit the information? Which
The only way you could do that, and that does become problematic every once in a while, because some students will go into like a PowerPoint and they'll change it, you know, they'll mess with everybody's. The only way you can do things that way that I know of is to create a Microsoft Word like fill in the blank, but it doesn't really transfer that well to the PowerPoint. So that does become problematic every once in a while.
Yeah, sorry, I don't usually like to interrupt with questions, but I felt that was pretty
No,
relevant to what we were talking about right now.
That's the way I flow, so we're good with that. We're good with
and
that.
Somebody else pointed out you can do this with Google products as well.
You can, yes, definitely. You can do it with Google. I'm just a Microsoft person, but yeah, everything we talk about today, and we're going to use one thing that is Google, you can do it the same way. Now, let's take a look at a little bit. I'm not going to go through the Word document because it's exactly the same thing, but you can take a look at Word, and you can do this pretty easily. And this is really a great tool if you're using Word with your colleagues and you're working on a project. Everybody's able to make changes. You can go back into OneDrive and you can see the versions to see who wrote what. So shared documents are really good. Now let's take a look at a little more exciting version of a shared document. And this is really called interactive power slides. Now Rachel's going to share a link with you. And what I want you to do with that is we're going to look at this a little bit differently. I'm going to pull it up here, and you can go ahead and click on the version that she's going to see. It's the same version, actually. She's going to show you or put that in the chat. So if you want to play along today.
Yep, I just put that in the chat for everybody.
This is what we're looking at. So I didn't create, 100 of these, but what you can do is just join. All of these are the same, 1 through, I think I created 7 of them. Now, what you're doing here, and I'm going to show you how to make this, but what you're going to do is grab one of these words and you're going to move it. So let's say danced. So that ends with a T sound. I'm going to move it over here to this area. So go ahead, if you will. I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to play around with this. And this is something that I learned from Matt Miller, who has a website called Ditch That Textbook. But go ahead and grab any of those areas and put those words in the right category. You'll see the words at the side. And if you say, hey, somebody's on this category, there's a couple things you can do. Because we're looking at this as an editable one, we can copy this. All you have to do is go down to number 7, and we're doing Control D to duplicate. Or you can just share with someone else, and you can play nice and just use the same little categories there and the same document. So while you're doing this, let's talk about what you might want to use this for. You might, if you are teaching something like anatomy and physiology, you might want to, instead of having these boxes, you might want to have a skeleton. And then you will have all the parts of the skeleton to the side, and then people will move them accordingly. And you've got to have a pretty decent picture or a line that's pointing out, and then you could add that document. You can also use it for categories of other things. You can maybe put a year or dates of things, and what happened during this time. And you could have longer little areas or longer clues or things to move than just one word. But this is useful to, people like to be active in their movement of things, and this is pretty easy to do. Now, if I were doing this in class, again, I might, if I have the time, write the names of the students, and I'll say, look, this is an alphabetical order according to your last name. So if your last name starts with A, you're number 1, and write their information. And then they can find their own little area here, because once I make this, I just copy it over and over and over. And we can see the results here. Now, this is okay. This person made it a little bit bigger, which is easy to do, but not a big deal, right? It's still in the right area. Okay, good job. Oh my goodness, you all are fantastic at your ED endings. So when we take a look at it again, we're looking at trying to respond to people in a way that lets them do something. So the best practice of this would give to each student one of these. And you think, hey, they're just going to copy somebody else's. No, they're too busy. They're too busy looking at theirs. And then if you give them a lot of time, yeah, they're going to go back and look at somebody else's. But if you say, okay, look, you've got 5 minutes to do this, go. They don't have enough time to look at somebody else's. Okay, now let's figure out how to make these. It's a little bit different PowerPoint than most of us have seen, because like in this one, there are things on the outside. You can't see that in the slide, but there are things on the outside, and we want to take a look at some of those. So let's figure out how to do this. And I'm going to get out of this mode, and I'm just going to show you what we do first. So one of the things that we want to do first is just to create, and I'm just going to create an empty slide here. So I want to go into draw, and I'm going to just draw 2 things. So you just go to shapes, not draw, sorry, insert, and insert a shape, and you can make it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. I'll give you just the idea here. So of course I don't want black. I'm going to go up to shape format, and I'm going to change the shape fill. I'm going to do something kind of light here. Now what I want to do is, maybe I've got a lot of words that I want them to, let's just go with that ED ending. So I want to label this a little bit, and I'm going to either draw, in this case I can insert I keep saying draw, the text box, and I can just make a text box, and I'm going to say like ID sound, and I'm just going to move that in place. So this is what this is going to be. But now I need to make all my little outside shapes. Well, this doesn't work here because I can't really, I've got a little bit of space, but you know, it doesn't work really well doing it that way. So there are two ways you can do this. One is you can change the size of the slides, and you can do that by going to Design and Slide Size, and you can change the size of those slides. Now, I don't want to do that for everything, so I'm just going to leave it, because the second way is going down to this little zoom box, and I want to make it lower. I want to make the number smaller so I have all this space. And then I'm going to insert a shape again. And this time, I'll draw my little shape, change the color again, but I'm just going to make it white. And then I'm going to start typing my words. So I have, oh, but I don't want that. I made the text white too. That doesn't work. Okay, so let's change that text type. All right. So I'm typing in my word here. And what I can do, instead of having to do that all the time, you just do Control-C and then Control-V for as many as you want. Now, I could have done this when it was blank and I didn't have any writing, but I kind of like to have the writing, so all I have to do is click and change that. You can do it either way. It doesn't make any difference. And maybe I want to go with a sound that doesn't have the ed ending. My students often get things like baked wrong, and they say baked. They're Spanish learners. And that's what you do. You just create all these, as many as you want, and you put them in the sides, you put them at the top or whatever, and then the students just have to move them to the correct area. So here, you know, I've got them too big. Maybe I'd want to make them smaller, or maybe just leave it like that, or make the box bigger. It doesn't really matter. And then you might have just one thing that you're kind of quizzing them on, or you can do a lot more, and you're saying, okay, here are, you know, here are 4 boxes, or here are 3 boxes. Put things in different categories. All right, in the comments, if you would, put down what you think you could use this for in your classes. Let's see if we can get some interaction here and take a look at some of those things. Let me give you just a few seconds to write down what you might want to use that for in your classes. Do you have some ideas?
Still waiting for some to come in. You can put that as, yeah, I see introductions.
Okay.
Writing center consultant training.
Yeah.
I teach, they're coming in now. They always come in pretty fast. I teach freshman success tips, so I will definitely apply this to learning style and preferences. I do a lot of student training. I think this would be helpful to keep them engaged throughout. I can have them do the first step of a math problem, or what is the first in order of operations.
Yeah.
Someone said I did this exact lesson last night in person, so this is great. Sentence structure, I use shapes to teach parts of speech already. Supplemental instruction leaders, interactive models for their sessions. This could be used during a workshop to assess students' learning. Our academic support center intro meeting for staff and student workers, so we're seeing like intros. My program is in supplemental instruction. These would be great ways to do activities, especially for online sessions.
Great. So there are so many ways you can use this. And you can make the answers or the things that you're putting in the boxes longer. Of course, you can put in sentences and say, is this a compound sentence? This is a simple sentence or complex sentence. You know, you maybe wouldn't be able to fit as many, but you could certainly do this. What I like about this is you can have students working on the same project at the same time. And again, you're putting it into a PowerPoint structure, and you would share the document, you let them edit it, and then you would just say, okay, you are doing number 1 or you're doing number 2, however you want to do it with your students. Again, you could put their names on the slides, but it is a good way to test things. It's a good way if you're doing classification of things. maybe in biology, or like you said, student success. What can we learn about that? So I'm glad somebody else used it. I think it's a really good tool, and it's kind of fun for students to move stuff. And they don't, they could go in and change these. They usually don't. They're not, they're not devious. All right, so that is our area looking at the interactive PowerPoint slides. I think it's a good tool, and I think it's, again, the key is to move this down at the bottom so it's small enough so you can fit things around the side, because they're going to have to look at the editable version of PowerPoint, not the PowerPoint presentation. It won't work that way. So if I present this, and if I do the slideshow from here, they're not going to know, they're not going to be able to see any of these. Okay, so you want to make sure you do it the other way. All right, so that is the interactive. Let's look at a digital escape room. Now, before we go into this one, before the code goes out for that, when we do a digital escape room, I'm showing you the easiest way to do it, in my opinion, and that's through Google Forms. You can do it in Microsoft Forms, but there's a validation issue, which I'll talk about in a minute. There are companies that will sell you digital escape rooms, and you just have to go through them, and a couple of them are free, and they'll set those up. There are a couple other programs, and I can tell you about those later if you want, but I stick with the stuff that's free, and I stick with things that I think are easy to do. So let's take a look at a digital escape room. What we want to do is go ahead and get that code.
And I'll also post.
Yeah, post it in the chat, please.
It's posted.
And if you will, go ahead and complete the digital escape room. Let's see what your knowledge is of state capitals and famous people. So I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes to complete that. All right, so that is a digital chat room, and some people have gone to the end of this. Now, this was a very short one. Let's just go through these questions, and then I'm going to show you how to make one of your own. So I'm just going to get my name in there. Now, what happens is that you want to create something that is a review. So remember at the very beginning I said content is always number one. Content is always number one. So one year I taught advanced grammar. You can imagine how exciting that class was. Anyway, advanced grammar. What I did, because they had an exit exam that they had to pass with 70%. And what I did was use a digital escape room for them to review test questions. Now, I didn't ever do this as a test because some people are just faster. It's kind of like using one of the quiz programs. Some of them, if they're using speed and accuracy, the speed is sometimes the Wi-Fi problem, and you want to be careful with that. But I put the students into groups, and they had to answer quite a few questions, maybe 10 grammar questions, and then they had to do something special. And at the very end, they had to create a video on Flip. So not only did they have to answer all these questions correctly, they also had to do a video speaking correctly. And then in the face-to-face class, I had a little treasure chest, and the winners got to unlock it, and they had their first pick at snacks because they're college students, of course, snacks. But when we take a look at these, we want to focus on the content. So today we're focusing on, well, not real important content. Okay, Capital Louisiana, right? And we have required to answer. And then we're looking at the capital of Iowa and the capital of South Dakota. By the way, if you put Pierre, but you pronounce it Pierre, you're not from South Dakota because we pronounced it Pierre. Anyway, so what you want to do is you want to make sure they know the answers. Now, there are a couple ways to do it. You could say, in this one it was like BCA, and you would put that information in BCA and they can move on to the next one. I could have done it with maybe I want to put the first letter. Does that work in most cases? So in some way you want to know that they got the answer correct, you know, or not, and you can still go over them in class. So let's go to the next one. So this is just kind of silliness here, but when I go to the next one, oh, I didn't answer these. So that is a problem. If I make them answer them, of course, on Google Forms, you can go back and see what that group did. Okay. And now this one, I find that people don't follow directions. And this is adults, not students, but adults. And they would say, I put capital K-E and then put a capital S-H and it didn't work well. Well, no, because that's not what it said in the directions. So this is what our term is. And then we just go to the next one. And this is, of course, a very short one. Face-to-face, you know, they had to do winner, chicken dinner, that sort of thing. Just makes it a lot of fun for the students. But again, you look at the content and say, what do I want them to practice? What do I want them to learn? And this is a really good review, and it's done in a group, so it's fun. And especially if you have little treats involved or you have other things that they can take a look at, it makes things pretty nice. So it's a fun way to do things. Now let's go back and start at the beginning and take a look at how to create a document. So what we want to do is go to Google Forms first. Let me go ahead and go to the slideshow so you can see that. Here is, and I made a QR code for them also. But to make this, you just want to go to Google Forms. Again, Microsoft Forms has a little bit of a situation they have for creating the validation questions, and so it's a little freer to use Google Docs. And just keep in mind, there are special companies or special programs that already have these created. So you can do your own. All right, so let's just create untitled form. Let's take a look at some questions we might want to look at. So I'm just going to go with a grammar review. That exciting topic of grammar review. Oh.
Ginny, we had a question about the digital escape rooms really quick.
Yeah,
Vanessa
sure.
wants to know if it doesn't let it does not that does it not let you pass on if the answer is incorrect?
Let's go back and experiment with that, because that's a really good point. Let me show you that. Because there are things you could put in to demonstrate, you know, this is going to work or this is not going to work. So let's just pull that up very quickly. Good question. And one that we want to take a look at. My mouse is doing its own little dance today. All right, so as we look at the form, you have to put in a validation code, which I'm going to show you how to do. And then what you're going to do is be able to take a look at some of those, and I'll show you as we go along. But no, it will stop you. And you can put in some guidance, like it might be, did you capitalize everything? You know, that sort of thing to make them follow directions. Okay, so you can make your information. Here I have a group number, but I can change this question and put in what's your name. So what I want to do is, maybe we want to add all these numbers together, or to get to the next section. What do you want to do here? So I'm creating the questions, and I might want to change this and say, what's your name? Now, if you're doing this online and you're not being able to put them into groups, then you just want to have them do it themselves. So I don't want a checkbox here, of course. I want to do a short answer. And I'm going to put required, and we just move on to the next thing. So I don't have any numbers to add together, so I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is start with my questions. So I might say, which of these sentences, or which sentence is correct? So and then you're writing your sentences. Of course, I made one that's going to be long here. And then I don't want to do a short answer. I want to do multiple choice. So I put in my option, and in this case, they have to answer the question again. And so I can see the results in my Google Forms, right? In the responses, I can see how well they're doing. So whatever the question is, which is correct. And you just, whatever it is. I'm just going to make it 2 options just to make it a little bit quick, okay? And it's not necessarily grammar, but it's a lot of different things going on there. Okay, so I'm taking a look at it. Here's my answer, right? That's what I want to put down. I'm going to make it a quiz. Now, what I want to do is just go on and keep asking questions. So I can put in another kind of question, a lot more details here. I don't want to go into another section yet, but I'm just filling out the questions. And this is the multiple choice. I'm adding the things that I want. So as I go along, I can go into another section and I just add it. But now, let's go with just a section 1 here, and I want to add another question. And when I'm adding the question, I want to be able to get my information. So I don't want to do this. Where's my question answer here? So maybe I want to duplicate it, but really I'm going to change it. So I'm going to do a short answer, and this is important. So I don't want to do another question. Let's say I've done 5 or 6 different multiple choice questions. And here at the end of this section, I want to say now, or to get to the next area, or the next questions, write down the correct or corrected word from each sentence. So let's say I have 5 different sentences, and I have homophones all the way through. So they would have the word here, H-E-R-E, they would have, you know, bear, B-E-A-R, whatever it is. Now I'm going to put down my information, but what I want to do is go over to the 3 dots and go response validation. Now it's important here to be able to use just the short answer and not go through and use multiple choice. It won't work there. We just want response validation. So here, and this is where this differs from a Microsoft Forms, is that Microsoft will let you do a number, but look at all the other things you can do here. You can do an expression, text, you know, length, whatever you need to do. And I'm just going to go with text. And so what do I want it to say? I want the text to be here, bear, and let's say break. And so I've had 3 questions that the student answer, and these are going to be the defining answers. But they're not going to know how to write this. So I need to give them samples, okay? Write the words in lowercase with a space between each word. And I can tell them exactly what I want them to do. If that's not clear to them, we're going to find out here. So here for custom error text, if they make a mistake, so you asked earlier, will it let them go on? No, it won't let them go on. Instead, it will show them this custom error text. So I'm going to say, did you write the words? And I would still maybe copy. Maybe I'll copy this part and just leave that again. Did you write the words? And this is what I'm going to put here, because that's probably what they have made a mistake on. And that's what I do for my samples. Sometimes if I get the word wrong, or somebody gets the word wrong, then I'm going to give them a clue. Like, did you capitalize, you know, A, B, C? Did you, whatever I have told them to do, they probably didn't do. And if they have a hard time, then they can ask me about it, or they're stuck and they're just stuck for a long time there. Once you get this done, they have to answer it this way before they can go to the next section. And at the next section, you're doing descriptions, you're answering, or you're putting in questions here, and you're doing the same thing. Now, what can you use as this code? You can use almost anything you want, because you can do a text, you can do, like we did with the state capitals, you could just do like, which answer was it, A, B, or C? I went to a conference a couple weeks ago, and they used the Morse code, and people had to, there was a link in the question that took you to a page about the Morse code, and you had to determine what that message was. And well, quite frankly, it was a lot of work. But you can do almost anything that you can think of. What do you want this to be? You can't write an equation in here, though. There are some limitations, so you want to be careful with that. But you want to challenge the student. Now, think of all the possibilities you could do here. Because you have the capability with forms to add all kinds of different media, or you can add a video, you can add all kinds of things to make it your own. And you can do that with Microsoft Forms too. You could add a video here, whatever you need to do. And when you're asking these questions, you can go ahead and just take a look. You can duplicate the you can merge, you can do all kinds of things with the sections. But what you might want to do is add, what kind of question do you want? And when I click on this, like I click on this and I'm looking at the question itself, there are all kinds of questions that you can put in. You maybe can want to add an image, or you add a video. So you could put a video in here, have them answer the questions about the video, and then it's a learning process. It's a review of the material. Sometimes it could be the first day of the material, and you're just introducing it. But if you create this sort of thing, then you can test them in a way, or say, okay, you just learned this from the video. Now, what is the right answer to this? And before they move on, they have to answer the questions. But you want to make it fun at the end. So it's learning at the beginning and throughout this. But if they're in groups, that's usually a way to have them learn a little bit more. And then they, yell, chicken, chicken, oh no, what, winner, winner, chicken dinner, or whatever it is, or they come up to the front and they get their prize, and everybody acknowledges that, and you get second place and all that. And then, though, what you do is go through these to make sure everybody understands. Now, with this or some of the other things, I don't know that you want to do this you don't want to do this every week. It would be a lot for you, a lot for them. But you maybe want to do it before each test, so it's a review. And oftentimes, back in my day, people would say, are there any questions? No? Okay. And that would be the end of it. But you were afraid to ask the questions. This way, it's a study review, and it's you could have the students create one of these also. And it would be a good challenge for them to come up with good questions, good prompts, and a good activity for them to do together, but they'd have to know the material. So that's kind of a bonus. So you can add all kinds of things to this to make it really fun and interesting. So are there any questions about the digital escape room? Anything in the chat?
I'm not seeing any other questions besides that one about not letting you pass on to the net through the room.
Can you also now, I asked this earlier, but can you think of how you would use this in your classroom? Again, if you're doing face-to-face, they would share a device, and they would huddle together around the one device and make the decisions. You could have them do it in face-to-face classroom by putting up the QR code, and they would each do it like we did today. You could also make it kind of a homework assignment where they have to complete this round and kind of figure out the answers, or if they get stuck, they would contact you in your LMS or some kind of a chat. So there are a lot of ways to approach this. And I think Google Forms is the easiest way to do this. It's not fancy schmancy. It doesn't have the great look like some of the paid versions, or they may have some free versions also. But it's here, and students, they're familiar with Google. They probably all have a Gmail account. So it works pretty well there. So today we've talked a lot about different ways of doing things. We've talked about looking at different ways to use documents that are shared. We talked about using documents that are shared in a way that are interactive. And then we finally talked about the digital escape rooms. So what questions do you have about any of these? Or can you figure out ways to use them in your classes?
We're seeing some comments about that already. Lindsay says, I've actually used this as a makeup assignment for a resource scavenger hunt. Meredith says, I really like this idea for new student orientation and could set this up as a virtual scavenger hunt about campus resources.
It would, yes.
Sergio says, I love Google Forms. Anyone else? Feel free to put that in here.
All right, well, I appreciate all of your attention about this. And really, as we go back to this, creating lessons and creating ways of students to really become active in their learning is a great thing. You know, we also have, you know, we can go old school and go back to playing Jeopardy and setting up games that way. But there are so many things that we can do to engage our students that really we should take advantage of them. It's going to help our classes go much smoother, usually, you know, if everything goes well. And if it doesn't, students are very accepting, and then we figure out what's wrong and move on from there. But all of these things have worked well in my classroom. And it's just a way to show that your class is not like my boring teacher when I was in college, who knew his material, but just didn't seem to be able to get it across to everybody in interesting and in fun way.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
We had another comment about this would be great for SI folks for their review sessions. So I think people's gears are turning in terms of how they can use these.
Right. And you know, with AI now involved in all of these programs, you can have your document, and you can upload most of those things to put it right into your forms. I know in Microsoft they can do it. I'm pretty sure in Google too, that you just upload all of these and it makes it easier. You know, I'm sitting here trying to think of questions, but you don't have to do that, because you either will have something already created and you can just put it in there, or just take your information and upload it. Yeah, it's a lot easier.
All righty. It looks like we don't have any other questions. I know we answered some throughout. I think, like I said, usually we take questions at the end, but I think this particular session lent itself well to questions as we go. So I'll give it one last final call for questions as we wrap up. And I thank everyone for coming today. And of course, thank you, Janine, for a great session and some pretty great ideas for things to try in your sessions. I'm sorry, in your centers, in your classrooms. And just as a reminder, as folks leave, we are going to be redirecting you to that survey if you're able to take that. And of course, we are also I just want to remind everybody we're offering that 1 semester trial of Accudemia, and we also have our upcoming Student Success Summit in October. So we hope some of you will join us for that. We have a question. Do you have any ideal classroom setup for the virtual classes? That's a question from Heather.
Ideal setup for the virtual class?
Yeah, she said, do you have an ideal classroom setup for virtual classes? Oh, as far as cameras.
Oh, as far as cameras, I just use the one camera. And I teach synchronous. So is that what you're referring to, or is there a different way?
I think maybe she's referring to, and Heather, you can clarify further if I'm wrong, but I think she's referring to the fact like where you position the camera, what kind of camera you utilize. You know, like I think with like a lot of YouTube videos and TikTokers, like there's an idea that there's, you know,
Right.
a particular way you need to do it. But I think as long as it's, she says, yes, we are trying to have an ideal setting for an instructor teaching to various schools at one time.
Okay. Okay. So you're going to be kind of the live presenter, and
That's
then
what it
it's
sounds
going
like.
in. Yeah, that's what it
Yes.
sounds like. Okay. So yeah, like virtual is just me here behind my computer, but I don't have an ideal. I don't know enough about that to give you advice on that. I would just say though that you've got to, if you're using like a whiteboard, or if you're using something that is physical, you know, you've got to get all of that covered. And I would kind of revert back to doing some of the whiteboard. There are a lot of whiteboards out there. Use that instead of the physical whiteboard, even if you're trying to be there present. Still use the tools that are online.
All right. All right, so again, if you're able to take that survey, and we are offering that free trial and having that conference in October, and we'll include some more information about both of those in the session recording. You're welcome, Heather. And Janine, thank you again for your time today. If anyone does have any further questions, you can pass those along to me, rachelc@engineerica.com. I'm just going to paste that into the chat one more time, and I'm happy to pass that along to Janine as well. We hope everybody has a great rest of their day, a great rest of your week, and we hope to see you again at the next keynote session. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.